Lyndon B. Johnson, the 36th President of the United States, led the country through a transformative period marked by civil rights progress, the escalation of the Vietnam War, and ambitious domestic programs. Born on August 27, 1908 in Stonewall, Texas, Johnson came from humble beginnings. His father, Samuel Ely Johnson, Jr., was a farmer and politician, and his mother, Rebecca Baines Johnson, was a teacher. Raised in rural poverty, Johnson's early experiences shaped his deep empathy for the underprivileged, a sentiment that would later influence his political career. Johnson attended Southwest Texas State Teachers College, now Texas State University, and after graduation in 1930, he worked as a teacher and later as a legislative secretary for Texas Congressman Richard Kleberg. His political ambitions grew, and in 1937, at age 29, Johnson was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. He became known for his adept political maneuvering and quick rise in Washington, earning a reputation as a dedicated and capable politician. Johnson's effectiveness was further proven when he became Senate Majority Leader in 1955, using his mastery of parliamentary tactics and personal relationships to pass significant legislation. In 1960, Johnson was selected as the vice presidential candidate alongside John F. Kennedy, a fellow Democrat. Johnson's experience and Texas roots were seen as balancing factors to the youthful and charismatic Kennedy. The two men did not always see eye to eye, but Johnson played a crucial role in Kennedy's election and was loyal to his president. On November 22, 1963, tragedy struck when President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Johnson, who was in a car nearby, was swiftly sworn in as president aboard Air Force One. His ascent to the presidency was marked by a sense of urgency and responsibility. Johnson pledged to carry on Kennedy's legacy, most notably in the pursuit of civil rights and social justice. One of Johnson's defining accomplishments as president was the Great Society, a series of domestic programs aimed at eliminating poverty and racial injustice. Johnson's vision was grand, aiming to improve the quality of life for all Americans, especially the disadvantaged. Under Johnson's leadership, Congress passed landmark legislation such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which banned segregation in public facilities and prohibited discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This historic law was followed by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which aimed to eliminate barriers to voting for African Americans in the South. Johnson's presidency also saw the creation of Medicare and Medicaid, which provided health care to senior citizens and low-income individuals respectively. Additionally, education reform, including the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA, of 1965, expanded access to quality education. While these achievements were monumental in shaping the future of America, Johnson faced intense political opposition, especially in the southern states. His support for civil rights alienated many conservative Democrats, leading to a realignment of American politics and the rise of the Republican Party in the South. Despite his successes in domestic policy, Johnson's presidency was overshadowed by the growing conflict in Vietnam. Johnson inherited the war from his predecessors, but his decision to escalate U.S. involvement in 1965 proved to be a defining, controversial aspect of his presidency. The Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, passed in 1964, granted Johnson broad military powers, and by 1968, over 500,000 U.S. troops were stationed in Vietnam. The war escalated rapidly, and Johnson faced mounting opposition from both the American public and political leaders. The war's unpopularity, compounded by increasing casualties and the challenges of fighting a guerrilla war, led to widespread protests and political unrest. As the war dragged on, Johnson's domestic agenda began to suffer. By 1968, with no clear victory in sight and public opinion turning against him, Johnson's political support eroded. In a dramatic move, Johnson announced in March 1968 that he would not seek re-election, citing the toll of the war and his desire to focus on peace negotiations. His decision to step aside marked the end of his leadership in the national spotlight. Though Johnson's presidency was clouded by the Vietnam War, his domestic achievements left a lasting impact on American society. The Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act were monumental steps toward racial equality, while programs like Medicare and Medicaid continue to serve millions of Americans today. Johnson's vision of a great society was an ambitious attempt to eradicate poverty, though the war in Vietnam ultimately strained the resources and political will needed to sustain these efforts. After leaving the White House, Johnson retired to his Texas ranch. He continued to be involved in political affairs and remained a deeply influential figure in the Democratic Party. He passed away on January 22, 1973, at the age of 64, just as the Vietnam War was nearing its conclusion. His death marked the end of an era of American politics, but his legacy continues to be debated. Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency was a study in contrasts. His domestic successes helped to shape the social fabric of the nation, particularly in the areas of civil rights and social welfare. Yet, his involvement in the Vietnam War stands as one of the most controversial aspects of his legacy. Johnson remains a polarizing figure, admired for his vision and accomplishments, but also criticized for the war that marred much of his time in office. Nonetheless, his contributions to American politics are undeniable, and his presidency left a profound and lasting impact on the nation.